Taper asks, what was the first RPG you ever played? I actually still have it. It's the Mech Warrior RPG, second edition. Is the first role-playing game I ever played. The BattleTech role-playing game. I started out into gaming, playing BattleTech when I was about 13, um, with my cousin Jason. And for those of you not familiar with it, BattleTech was a hex-based board game based on giant robot combat. And it was a really great strategy board game, giant battle robots, that sort of thing. And I played that for a year or two, and then I ended up picking up Mech Warrior later. I still like it actually. It's you play Mech Warriors, which are the people who pilot the battle mechs, the giant robots. They were always badass inside their giant robots, but they're always kind of dubious outside of them, so it was really fun. The game I played in, we were a mercenary group on the edge of the inner sphere, which was like the civilized planets, trying to scrape by a living, working for pirate lords and dubious characters and so forth. One thing I actually really like about MechWarrior RPG is that there's a real clear delineation of when you're in a situation you're supposed to fight your way out of and when you're supposed to be role-playing. Because if you're in your battle mechs and you're out on a mission, you're obviously supposed to fight. And if you're outside of your battle mechs, you're usually not that great. So you want to talk your way out of it. Combat was pretty fun because they just switched over to the strategy game, and everyone who was playing was already a fan of playing the strategy game. So you just played the strategy game with your characters as the various mechs, which made the stakes a little bit higher and made them play like they really wanted to keep people alive, which made things a lot more interesting. Da asks, what do you find most frustrating about vampire players in general? Well, to lead up to this question, Vampire is a game of politics and darkness. I find it frustrating when people want to play fangy superheroes. I think we all know what I'm talking about. Vampire isn't about playing a hero. It's about being a monster that finds it very hard even to be human, much less a hero. Yeah, they can do things which have their own sort of nobility to them, but that's not the point of Vampire. When players refuse to betray each other, refuse to hold a grudge, remember a betrayal, all these things that make politics complicated and interesting, in the name of getting along and not wanting to, piss off your friends, that's very frustrating because I think it robs a vampire of a lot of its bite. The other thing that annoys me about vampire players is getting attached to the characters to the point they storm out of the game. Just not just when they die or something like that, but whenever they have to deal with any setbacks whatsoever. But that's not particular to vampire at all. Dot asked, no, nail polish, yes or no? I don't wear it myself, but I like it when Steph does. Dot also asked, do I play any musical instruments? I play the harmonica badly. I used to play the trumpet back when I was in high school, but it's been forever. Way back in the day, I used to play the piano, but I was like 8, and I've completely forgotten how. Aaron asks, can I plagiarize this idea? I plagiarized this idea. Props to Joe for coming up with it. Da asks, do I enjoy musicals? I like watching some of the Disney musicals and some of the more offbeat musicals like Repo or Woody Allen's Everyone Says I Love You. I go to Rocky Horror once or twice every year. I know a lot of the shoutback lines, but does that really count as liking a musical? It's really an awful, awful movie. Matt, aka Oak, asked, do you have any tips and pointers for an inspiring tabletop vampire ST like him? I could do an entire series of videos on this, but I'm not going to, so don't hold your breath. I can recommend the only decent book out there on the subject. It's less than 50 pages. It's called Robin's Laws of Good Game Mastery, and it's by Robin D. Laws. It's got some great advice in it. It's very short. It's got some great points. As far as my personal advice, find your own style, and remember that as an ST, you're only going to get the kind of game that you want to run if you get the players to make the kind of characters that fit into it. And if they make characters that don't fit into it, you're going to get nothing but conflict, and you're not going to get them to work together with you, and it's just going to turn out badly. So don't be afraid of explaining the type of game you want to run and making sure that the players make the kind of characters that fit. If this one guy wants to make an Assamite badass who wants to kill everything, you're trying to run a politics game, he's going to fuck shit up, and you have to not be wary of saying, I'm not running the type of game you would enjoy, maybe you should find someone else. If you're running any vampire game, remember that vampire is about politics and conflicts of personalities, even in the Sabbat, if not more so, because the Sabbat aren't as ready to kill each other because of the Code of Milan. Conflicts of personalities between NPCs generate these conflicts. A simple graph of who thinks what of whom is very useful, and clearly plotting out your NPCs can be a big help in figuring out how the city will react to what the players are doing. You have a bigger job than I do, actually, when it comes to a tabletop game, because you have to simulate the reaction of everybody in the city. So you need to be prepared to quickly formulate who would or would not approve of the player's actions. I also recommend you keep things small. Vampire works best if it's very local and isolated and city-based rather than jetting all around over the place. You can do a little bit more of that than we do if you're running a tabletop game. If you do too much of it, it kind of loses its kind of insular city-state sort of feel. Just in general, I would recommend that you have some good floating NPCs out there that can help the PCs out of binds, like, the Nosferatu Warren chief who, is always looking for a good informant or something like that, in exchange, of course, for their social servitude and that sort of thing, to, get your hooks into the players and have things you can use to force them to do things. Matt also asked, what are your thoughts about the recent influx of vampire-related shows, fang fiction, that sort of thing, the entire vampire hype? This happens every 10 years or so, so I'm not particularly surprised. The vampire has been part of the Western mythological lexicon and literary lexicon for ever since Dracula, if not before even that, yet vampire Varney and that sort of thing. So I'm not particularly surprised. My only hope is that all these Twilight fans will find the other good shit that's out there once they eventually get out of their teeny phase and become disenchanted 20-somethings and they don't turn into fucked up Mormons. Boo asked, what's your opinion on bringing characters of other White Wolf games into New Corsica? There already are other characters from other White Wolf games in New Corsica. But like it should be, they don't spend their time hanging out with you because they have other shit to do. And they're not vampires, so why would they care about you? They don't make themselves known all the time. They don't hang out with your walking corpses for fun. When you do encounter the other characters, which they're set characters, ask around. There's people who know who the other supernatural NPCs are. When they do encounter you, their ship's passing in the night. They have other shit to do. Everything else in the world of darkness other than vampires has other shit to do. The werewolves are busy fighting the worm and shouldn't be hanging out with vampires at all. Changelings are dealing with the autumn. Mages are battling for reality itself. Vampires are pretty small potatoes and not very consequential to most of the world of darkness in the real scheme of things. I mean, the vampires are pretty low on the vampire totem pole. The fact of the matter is that they're so pathetic, really, in the supernatural totem pole, they have to find wraiths to go beat up. Boo also asked, which games from the old world of darkness do you also play? My personal favorite is Mage. I like the conflict of beliefs, and that forms the foundation of Mage, but as in all things, they screwed it up in the 3rd edition. Ooh, Apathy Lost. Oh, shut up, you fucking hipsters.